Welcome everyone to this Lunch and Learn. We're really excited this semester we're able to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And part of that, working towards that goal, we have discovered a CARE framework. And we'll talk more about that today. And that's going to lead the next 4 conversations that we have. And then we'll move into some other elements also of diversity, equity, and inclusion to finish out our semester. Our beginning, though, will be a focus on the C in this CARE network, and that is community. So thank you very much to this little Lunch and Learn community. We're happy that you're here today. All right, Carrie Ann and I are working with you today, so we're going to turn it over to Carrie Ann to take us through our opening exercise.
So what we would like you to do right now is think about a learning experience where you felt welcome, valued, and respected. And it does not necessarily have to be an academic experience. It can be any type of learning experience. But we want you to think about maybe what features of that learning experience made you feel welcomed, valued, and respected. And you can go ahead and either unmute or answer in the chat when you think of something.
And if you need a little inspiration, those other learning experiences could be learning to cook lasagna, learning to ski, or it could be statistics. I mean, whatever learning experience you had.
So when my family changed churches and they actually had a program, it sounds like an indoctrination when I say it like this, but it wasn't. It was actually a really cool, just kind of like a background of our religion. We're Lutheran, and it was an extremely small group of people. Some of us were new to the church. Some people were existing members. And because the group was so small, they really embraced all of the new people. It was lovely. It was just the neatest. It was very, and I'm going to keep saying small because I think there's something so inclusive about small classes where everybody, you can't get lost and you can't disappear. And so you're kind of thrown right in there and everybody sees you and you're a part of things. And they did that beautifully.
Thank you so much for sharing, Lisa. That's wonderful. And in the chat, we have Kelly Davis, who said, feeling like my presence was valued as an individual participant. And then April said, I had the best 4th grade teacher that took the time to talk to me every day. She made an effort to figure out what the students were interested in and brought it into the classroom. That's wonderful. Anyone else have an experience they would like to share?
It's Jennifer. I was just going to say I had professors in college who actually took the time. They knew the students, so they would actually greet us as we came in the door and call us by name. So that made us feel very welcome and, part of the community. So it's something I try to do with my students online or in classroom is, greet everybody by name, ask them how they're doing, that kind of thing as they come into the classroom.
Yes, I think that's really important and can be, once we learn our students' names, I mean, that part takes effort, but then doing it actually doesn't take that much effort. I will share that when I first came to Delaware Tech, I took a job that Nicole Truitt had. And so she was so very welcoming to me. She had a new job then as a full-time English instructor. So she was very busy, but she spent many hours with me, helping me learn all the things that I needed to know. And then when I had a question, I knew I could email her and she would always answer me and be helpful and not irritated at my questions. So that really made me feel very respected and valued and feel, like safe in this environment that I could ask questions and I could reach out for help. So we have some more in the chat. Said, reflecting on elementary school, it always helped when there were classroom animals. That's very good. A common, being to take care of. Someone else said, a little research on students is wonderful. Knowing their major is a big connection starter. And I think that's great. I typically ask students at the first day of class what their major is. So that way, when I'm teaching psychology this semester, I can relate things in our class to the different majors. And I think students really enjoy that.
I really noticed a theme just now in what came through, that there was a whole lot of knowing that individual. And isn't that interesting, to knowing the individual in order to find that sense of community? So again, it kind of takes us back to our conversation from a couple of weeks ago, that diversity is that part where we're noticing differences. How are we different? What makes us unique? And then we're coming together in that inclusive nature to bring us all together and really value those differences and see how we can help have a richer experience because of those different things that we can bring to the conversation, to the table. Thank you, everyone, for participating in this beginning exercise and our community building. We'll look at the agenda. And do you see that on the screen? Is it working? Okay, excellent. Yeah. We'll look for our agenda today. We're going to talk a little bit more about this CARE framework so that we know where we're all coming from. And then we'll actually discuss what is community and why do we care? Why do we want that? We'll do a little practice, a little more practice with building community, and we'll share ideas for community development. And we love to have a call to action. So giving you a chance to really think about how you can use this information in your courses or with people you advise. So let's start a little bit with this CARE framework. The CARE framework was created by the CERTL network. And this CERTL network is the Center for the Integration of Research, Teaching, and Learning. And it was used to organize evidence-based strategies for promoting inclusion and equity in both an in-person or in your online learning as well. So this isn't just for online learning, because we know that we have a lot of even hybrid courses. So really thinking about this community in the sense for all of our courses, although it may look a little different in each setting. And Carrie Ann popped the link in there for you. There are a lot of great resources at that site. The CARE framework is made up of 4 parts. The first part is community, then there's agency, representation, and equal access. Today, we're going to focus on community. So Carrie Ann, could you please take just a little bit of time to describe community for us?
Sure. So community refers to the feeling of membership and belonging within a group. And we talked about that at the beginning, you know, making you feel like you belong may not necessarily be making you feel like you're one of everyone else. It may be making you feel like you as an individual have value and have purpose and you are welcome here. So then next we want to look at, why do we want to build community? And I mean, there's the warm and fuzzy reasons, right? But the research shows that really students who feel a sense of community have access to deeper learning and they achieve more. Students who feel welcome and feel part of this group because they are valued as an individual will do better in our classes. So, you know, it's a little bit selfish. We can make this community and then, you know, make sure that our students succeed and do better.
So let's start, or let's continue a little bit with some more community building. Here's an example of a little icebreaker that can lead us through a conversation of a few of our favorites. So get your fingers ready, because we're going to type it in the chat or unmute. What is your favorite fruit? What's your favorite fruit?
Frozen grapes.
Ooh, I heard grapes and what'd you say, Jean Marie?
Frozen grapes.
Oh, frozen grapes. Oh, yes. I love that adjective on there too.
Oh.
I see. It makes a difference, doesn't it? But green or red?
Ideally, the cotton candy flavored ones, but as long as there's no seeds, I don't care what color it is.
Fabulous. I see lots of watermelon in the chat. I see some apples and strawberries as well. Oh, I see that you have a kindred spirit with grapes too, Jean Marie, although it didn't designate frozen. So maybe they don't need to have that texture to them. I see a banana, peaches, cherries. I know I really like peaches and I like raspberries too. So almost like that peach Melba experience, maybe, I don't know. Oh, I see pineapples and mangoes too. We're getting that tropical nature in there. This is a lot of fun. So we've got some favorite fruits. Okay, ready for the next one? Get ready, here it comes. What's your favorite day of the week? Favorite day of the week? I see a Friday. Oh, I see a Thursday. Saturday with an exclamation point. Friday emphatically. We've got another Saturday. Sunday. Ooh, we like a Sunday, that resting day, maybe. Or maybe that's the day you finally get things done because everything else. Oh, I have a Friday and Saturday. Grace said I can't decide between the two. Those are both. Anyone want to give a reason for their favorite day?
I work
Well,
really
Saturday.
a long day on Mondays so that I'm off Friday. So there's something about Thursday because I really do love my classes, but there's something about knowing that when I'm done, I've got this 3-day weekend ahead of me. It's like having a full tank of gas. Anything's possible.
That's
There's still hope. I have hope on Thursday.
That's terrific. I see family time and Sunday check-ins. Friday night is a no-cook dinner night and a cheat night on the diet. So extra fun. Oh, that's fabulous. All right, here we go. One more favorite. What's your favorite season? What's your favorite season? I see quite a few summers. Summers might be winning, but a couple of falls. We actually have a winter. Jill likes winter. We're supposed to get some snow today, maybe. Spring and summer, another fall. I like the colors in the fall. I really do. And the temperature. Fall and another summer. Fabulous. I wonder if you notice something about these favorites, though. We tried to be very intentional with the favorites that we talked about. I didn't ask you what your favorite vacation was because maybe you haven't had the opportunity to take a vacation. So I didn't go through there. I didn't ask you your favorite TV show. Maybe you don't watch TV. Maybe you don't have, does anyone watch TV anymore anyway? We all watch streaming. We don't really watch TV anymore, right? But trying not to make assumptions about what you might have access to. Sometimes, and I know this comes a little bit from the K-12 world, but I think it's applicable even in our environment. For instance, when you come back from winter break, you don't want to try to talk too much about gifts, for instance. What did you get? Things like that, or what did you do? Those kinds of maybe just a general what did you do, but not where did you go? Things like that. The holidays, any of them, can be a lot of pressure for some individuals. So we want to kind of lighten that up and be cognizant of it when we come back. Doesn't mean we can't talk about did you have a nice time while you weren't here, but we don't want to assume that everyone else went on vacation too, just like we did. All right. Carrie Ann has a different type of icebreaker for you that you might want to try.
So this is a Padlet icebreaker. And if you have been around Lunch and Learns, you might have seen Padlet and used Padlet before. And I'm going to share the link with you in the chat so that you can go ahead, go to Padlet. And, there's a lot of different things that you could do with your students, again, as these icebreaker activities. So one of the examples that we picked was picking some years. And depending on how old your students are, depends on maybe which years you might pick. But picking years and then having students put in the column something that happened to them, something they experienced or something that they did during that year. And if you didn't want to do years, if that felt too complicated, you could also do months of the year. So maybe put the months there and then might say, in February, of any year, I got a puppy, or maybe, in May, I got married, to just, again, give students the chance to share things about them so that they can learn about each other and build that sense of community. There. So you can see on the Padlet, Laura already added some different events from different years. So if you would want to go ahead and if you can think of anything that happened during any of those years, and you can just click on there on the Padlet and add an entry. And we'll give you guys a minute to do that.
And you do that with that little plus mark under the year that you would like to provide a contribution.
I can't remember what I did yesterday.
Um, and and another way that you can do this, of course, is with coins. But I didn't want to assume that people had coins in their pocket because maybe they only have plastic in their pocket. But we were, or this icebreaker was originally about coins, and I have done it in my classrooms before, but I brought the coins myself. I brought a whole handful of pennies and was able to use it that way. So you can decide in person or online. It's just a way to get people talking. Look at that. We've got lots of things in here. April moved into a new house and started working at Delaware Tech. 2 big changes in 2020. Oh, we've gotten married, gotten engaged, started working at Delaware Tech. The BSN program began. I wonder if Kelly wrote that one in there. Moved below the canal, got just a little bit quieter lifestyle, maybe calmer. We had a son being born in 2009. Oh,
And actually, I was wrong. Apparently, I can't remember things. That was when I was pregnant with Delia, not with James, but you know, it all blurs together.
We had someone start at Delaware Tech in 2009 as well. Fabulous. So this is just a way that you can start to have people have those thoughts, those conversations for those icebreakers, help build some of those connections. Terrific. Okay. Let's look at, and you can of course continue to contribute if you would like, but in our collection, we'll move on to the next part in our Lunch and Learn. So now we just did a couple of examples of icebreakers. Let's really talk a little bit more about the theories, the research behind community building. So we found, for instance, community building in the classroom. This is a website from Columbia University that gives some ideas. The first thing that you want to do is really prepare for that community building too. Be ready for it. One of the ways that you can prepare for that is to establish community agreements. So at the beginning of your class, you might, we might have referred to those as classroom rules before. We might have had different terminology for it, but it's really how are we going to be able to talk to each other? How do we disagree politely? How do we accept answers from others? How do we encourage others to participate? We might plan for, and we need to plan for those small group activities. So really have an idea of how we're going to make those happen and be intentional about it. Do we have a way that we are purposefully grouping students into those small groups for those beginning activities? Are we going to survey them first, find out what their favorite animal is and base it on their favorite animal? I mean, whatever, maybe something more weighty than that, your favorite, or what's your major? We talked about knowing your students' majors. Maybe we use that for grouping, but really be intentional about it and know before we go in how we're going to do it. And if you are teaching online for any portion of your class or using some kind of technology, have that tech support contact ready just in case you need it, or have a plan B. So we all know that if something doesn't quite work out the way that we wanted it to, we might need to have a plan B. So for instance, when we were talking about our favorites and if we weren't able to type it into the with the Padlet, if we weren't able to get the Padlet to work and write in those dates, then maybe we'd go ahead and we would have typed it into the chat. So it's really just knowing that we have a plan B so that we can respond to it differently. And what we just did, we participated in 2 things that could be examples of social icebreakers. I also, Carrie Ann and I did 2 on purpose as well, because you don't just want to have those icebreakers at the beginning and then be done with them. You might sprinkle them throughout your course. Now, please don't hear every single course session you're going to have some kind of icebreaker, because I know sometimes that can get old for people too, especially if you end up with some longer ones. But if it's just some quick responses, real quick in the chat or real quick write on a whiteboard, what your favorite day of the week or whatever, then those are things that can happen quickly. But it's that idea of, again, building that community, finding more and more connections throughout the course. Maybe you have 3 or 4 sprinkled through your course. There are some ideas in that article that include finding connections between people, but also maybe you develop the soundtrack of your life as one of your icebreakers. These are things that you could have students do before they come to class as well. So what are 2 songs that represent you in your life? And then when we talk about those song titles, maybe it's in the titles or it's in the lyrics, and then we can get a connection together. It also helps us, with our age span connection, with, maybe some other kinds of aspects. Where are you from? That can be used for a map. And your favorite quote. Why does this connect with you? Those are just a few ideas of how you could use social icebreakers at different places. There's another kind of way to build community, and those are through metacognitive activities. Now, in Lunch and Learn, you might have heard Carrie and I mention periodically the term metacognition. And metacognition is really thinking about your thinking. So we want to build those shared learning experiences when we do metacognitive activities. And these might be developing a personal definition of learning and seeing how many of us have something in common with that. We might talk about our goals for the course and what we hope to accomplish or what we hope to accomplish in our program, and then rank those goals, match ourselves amongst each other because of that. Group reflection is another way that we're reflecting on something that has happened in our course. And the muddiest point, we mentioned that in a previous Lunch and Learn as well in the last semester. So we have more information about that in that Lunch and Learn as well. And then there's another way to build community, and that's through your content-based activities. So sometimes people feel like community building, it's a little fluffy. We heard Carrie Ann mention, yeah, we have, the beyond the fluff reasons. There's other ways that you can do it specifically around the content in your course. Remember, we mentioned the soundtrack for the social icebreakers. Maybe it's songs that you think help illuminate the content, and it's just another way for students to approach the content. Or thinking about what's my favorite thing that we've talked about so far. I really loved when we studied the pancreas. That was the most fascinating part for me because I never thought of a pancreas before. Of course, mapping your content. How does it all fit together? Where does it connect? For instance, in history, when across the globe, when were these events happening at the same time? How might they have inspired each other as well? And then finally, those real life examples. We want to have students bring in those opportunities to share their real life. And you instructors, you are the experts. You know what happens in real life with your content as well. Bring some of those examples in for your students to help them recognize where they could go. They see you as their models of where they hope to be because they see you as successful and inspirational, and they want to learn about their professional life from you, their possibilities. Now, we did have a mention, I loved it because Lisa was talking about small groups. Sometimes our courses are large, and for us, large might mean 25, but still, if you think about a discussion board on D2L, for instance, if there are 25 answers to read through, if you are the 25th, you might not get a whole lot of responses from your classmates by the time they get to the 25th. So there's a consideration for using small group discussions in your course of maybe, 5, because I can read through 5 and respond to maybe the one who's later in the list. And if I am that 5th person, I feel like my voice matters more in a group of 5, then I might feel like I'm not heard in that group of 25 if I'm not able to jump in right at that first step when that discussion board opens. But in this consideration of small groups, you might also want to consider having the same groups for the duration of your course. Now, what that means is that at the beginning, however you've grouped those students, that gives them the opportunity to really solidify that community that they're developing amongst themselves. And it's something to consider. As an instructor, you might have to be reflective. If a group really is not working, maybe you do have to switch them up a little bit. But if you can develop those nice little cohorts where people can find strength in each other, that might be a nice way to help them survive those groups of 20, those classes of 25, and help them not feel lost. Because we noticed right at the beginning from that first activity, we want to be seen as an individual, we want to be seen as a person and feel like somebody cares about us. And it's easier to do that in a smaller group. You might Now, in those larger courses, there are ideas of random group reporting, for instance. Maybe we don't have time for 7 groups of 3 to report. So we might just choose a couple of groups to report on this question, a couple of groups to report on that question if we had them doing group work. You can use polling tools, and there are polls right inside of Zoom, but there's poll everywhere that we used 2 weeks ago in this Lunch and Learn series. There's lots of opportunities that you could just get a sampling, or you can use technology within your college responses to collect responses, I should say collect responses before class. So when I mentioned, for instance, you might have them put something into a discussion board before class, so you have kind of that feel for how the students are responding to a particular topic. And then finally, there's some other suggestions. These come from an article by FIOC that really was looking at community of inquiry. And these are some activities, and there are lots more in that article. And that article is available for you. A PDF of that article is available for you as a resource. But you might open up to video responses, letting students be able to make videos or audio responses rather than only text. You might find you get some new or different kinds of answers. You want to make sure you account for cultural differences. So in the examples that you use, you're trying to make sure you're inclusive in those ideas that you share. Having students lead discussions as experts. And I love this because we had using student names in this idea. And we also heard that already from the people who are participating in this Lunch and Learn. So you have fabulous ideas already for how we build community. And I'm excited because that leads us into the next part. So here was a lot of information for you. And Carrie Ann's going to call you to action.
So now thinking about how can we use some of these ideas to create a sense of community in our courses. And I want to say, Laura gave us a ton of examples, and sometimes it's easy to get overwhelmed with all the examples and think, I can't do this. I'm barely getting out of bed now as it is. But, maybe just doing one thing at a time, or one new thing per semester is enough. And you can kind of see how it goes and then decide if you want to add more. So as you're thinking about your courses, even for this semester, we're in week 3, so there's still, lots of time. But thinking about, would you want to create some social icebreakers so that your students might get to know each other a little more and have kind of a little bit non-academic conversations to build connection? Would you want to do some metacognitive activities so that students start to think about their learning? Or maybe some content-based activities where you are putting students into groups and having them collaborate. So think about and maybe share with us either in the chat, or you can unmute if you have a good idea or something that maybe you've already done and you'd love to share with us.
So I'll talk because I can talk faster than I type. In our courses, we usually have about 20 students, sometimes maybe 1 or 2 more, sometimes less. But the large courses, small group discussion. I can't tell you how many times I've had a student, they're supposed to post their initial post on Wednesday before midnight and then respond to their peers by Sunday. Well, I might have somebody who is late on that first post, but their post was so motivating and meaningful. And I know that the other 19 students probably didn't look at it, because they wanted to get it done before it was due on Sunday. So the smaller groups might at least allow them to be heard, because, and I've said to students, I really wish that you were able to do this when it was due, because I feel like this would have been so beneficial. So of course, now we're getting ready to be accredited, so nothing can change at this point.
I understand.
But and we all, in the RNBSN, we move as a collective, so that all the students have the benefit of the same experiences. But I think this is something I would really, we're trying to address our discussion boards for more efficacy anyway. So I think this might be something that would be beneficial, just to have that smaller collective. I'd rather have 5 small groups that really are in tune with each other than one class of 20 who people are missing really valuable stuff from each other. So it was a good idea. Thanks.
Yeah. And there is, also to that end, since you maybe can't change it right now, but there is, I know Laura has talked about this before, there's definitely benefit in when you find a good discussion board, pointing it out to everyone. And so you can do that like in the announcements or in, a class email where you say, and, you want to make sure you point out different people. So you're not always like, oh, Lisa is the best one every time. But just if Lisa puts together an excellent discussion board, to point it out and say, hey guys, you may have missed this, but I think she made some really good points, and I think you should read it. And then you can kind of sprinkle that, and you can do that with the small discussion groups too, because then you can say, oh, in discussion board 3 they talked about this, so that way nobody's missing out on anything, and you can highlight kind of those excellent pieces. Thanks, Jean Marie. I think that's a good idea. Okay. I did just do one with my class. I will share it. For the general psych, what I did was come up with, I want them to start to think about psych research and what is the current kind of findings on different topics. So I came up with 4 different questions, and it's an in-person class, and I divided the class into 4 groups. And I said, okay, I want you to go on your phones, because I know you have them, go on your phones and research. So like one of the questions was, does playing video games make people more violent? And look up the current research, talk together and come up with, what is the consensus, and then share it out to the class. And it was so nice because, the kids really hadn't started talking to each other yet in the course, but this activity forced them in these small groups to start talking to each other and sharing their experiences about different topics. And it seemed to work really well, and they seemed to get a lot out of it. So I thought that was a good example, hopefully.
And a content-based example.
Exactly. Yes.
Excellent. All right. And if you think of anything else that you have used to build community, we would love to be able to capture those ideas. Feel free to type that into the chat. So I want to say thank you for coming today so that we can really talk about community in the classroom and the benefits. We talked about some of the research benefits for it. We talked about some ways that you can build it. So why we care and how do we do it. And I want to also thank you for coming.
Another great session. Thank you both.
Oh,
Thank you, Callie.
thank you for coming. Thank you so much. And we hope that you all enjoy lunching today, and that you enjoyed lunching and learning today.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much. This is great.